My name's Gina, and I kind of look like a grungy 50s housewife. I'm not sad about it. Today we are going to be doing part 2 of destroying the Pat McGrath Mothership Palette, which is repressing shades from the palette into smaller pans. If you didn't know this, I have a giant set of very large palettes that all have 26mm pans, and that is how I prefer to store and use my eyeshadow. Fortunately, most brands and most eyeshadow palettes come in 26 or 27mm pans. However, some people think that they're special and do square pans or rectangular pans or larger pans, and poor people like me have to spend time digging out eyeshadow and resetting it. But I'm not bitter. Before we get into it, if you don't like this kind of video, that's perfectly fine. Just feel free to go ahead and exit out. But if you want to see things like makeup tutorials, tags, all that good stuff, palette bingos, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I hope you have a great day no matter where you are. Everybody else, let's get started. Today is going to be an interesting one because, as I discovered in the depotting section of this, these crystallized shadows, this formula, they actually don't have a pan. They sit directly in the palette with a kind of silicone thing underneath. So we are going to attempt to set them into metal pans and see what happens. If they don't set, if they don't take, I will let you know 110% because we're going to check in at the end. But it's something that you should know before you attempt to do this. So watch all the way to the end if you're like sitting there with your palette about to start before you do that. But outside of that, it should be pretty standard in that we're just going to scoop. Honestly, the only other one I want to keep is this one. So we're going to, so here's how it's going to work. I've already got the gold one scooped out. You're going to watch me crunch that up and set it into the pan. Then I'm going to do the satin one as well on camera, talking through it. And then I will speed up the video and you'll see me do these two as well. The rest of the three in this palette I don't plan on keeping. The mattes, if you saw my palette review, I hate them. They're patchy, they're awful, they blend terribly, I don't like them. And this brown satin just is boring. And the blue, I have this color blue in a metallic and it's way better. So we're not keeping that one either. So for now, we're keeping the gold, these two, which may get kicked to the curb anyway because I have shadows that are very similar to them that are better, and then this purple satin, which I don't have anything like, and I actually think it's really cool. All that said, let's go ahead and get started. Gonna dump my gold out here. I mentioned in the depotting video that I had never seen a formula like this before. It is kind of spongy and like very flexible. Like you see, like it's bending. I've never seen that before. It's really interesting. I just wish it performed better. So I'm gonna take a stab at chopping this up some. Oh wow, okay. So it's very spongy, and this might be why it doesn't get set into pans in the palette. This might be one that does better with something like a mortar and pestle. If you are into that sort of thing, it'll let you like actively get in there and like grind at it. With that said, I'm doing a bit more of like it's a more complex motion. Typically you can just come in here and chop at it, but with this one I'm kind of grinding and chopping at the same time. Like I'm getting a secondary motion in there. I'm gonna leave that there. Honestly, I want to see how it will do with a little bit more alcohol. So I'm gonna bring this over. I have 91% isopropyl alcohol here. I like using 91% because it dries faster. If you are looking to disinfect as well, I would go with 70. I learned that the other day, that 70 is better for disinfecting. Dropping a little bit in the pan, just so that it can get wet on both sides. And then I'm taking my little knife and a piece of paper and just scooping it all up. Because these pans are bigger, we might have leftover. We shall see. I'm gonna add a little bit of alcohol. So as you see it, like it really like calms it down some. We're getting like a cool little shimmer off of it, which is neat. I personally am not like super fussed about keeping every drop of product in here. If you are, you might want to do a third round. Alright, so we've got our consistency going here, which is liquidy or mushy, but not completely like drowning. And I'm going to I have grabbed another pan and a Kleenex. So placing this down here, flipping it over, making my little Hershey kiss. And then I anticipate ripping the Kleenex. I anticipate that we will have some like overflow, that pushing this in will make it overflow. But stop for a second and appreciate like the lovely majesty of that liquid gold. It's really pretty. So to try and minimize the overflow, I'm at first pressing this very slowly, very gently, like just using the weight of my fingers, and then I'll push in harder. I'll hold that for about 30 seconds. Again, not a ton of weight here, just the weight of my hand, with a little bit of flex, this time just from my fingers. I am wondering / hoping that if this represses okay, that pressing it softer will give it a little bit more something. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's fascinating. I'm gonna try pressing it a little harder. I don't think that will help, but just in case. Yeah. So this is interesting. Typically when you repress something, it fills out the edges. You don't necessarily have to be super finicky with it for it to do this. It will just do it on its own. But this is not doing that, which I find very interesting. So I'm just gonna take a little bit, add to the edges and press in again, put gently. And then just kind of, we're gonna set this aside to dry. It doesn't look very pretty at the moment. I have repressed some shadows that look like this afterwards. It's fine, or at least as fine as this, I can tell you this formula will be. So that's it. We're gonna set it aside to dry for at least 24 hours, and then we'll come back tomorrow and take a look at it. But first, we're gonna clean our space, clean our knife, clean our workspace, and then we will do the satin. It's important to clean the space, if in case it wasn't obvious, so that like no particles of eyeshadow from one get into the other. Also gonna clean off my hands just a smidge with something textured, again, to just prevent cross-contamination. with my area clean, I'm gonna grab a depotting tool, which is this guy. You can do it with your bird's beak, you can do it with your electrician screwdriver, you can do it with the end of your tweezers. All we're doing is digging out this product. Same kind of deal, we're gonna chop it all up and make it nice and fine. This is such a, I have found a newfound appreciation for grays lately. And I think that's from the Ace Beauty Paradise Fallen palette. I recently picked out a purple, like a gray purple from there, and it's gorgeous. Like I buffed that into my crease and I was like, where have you been all my life? So got our pan. Well, this is both good and bad in that I am out of metal pans. It's good in that I can order new ones because these that I got, oh, here we go. These that I got are not good. They like don't adhere to, like, I had a really hard time with product falling out of them when I didn't with the other ones. All right, got my pan. I'm gonna get some alcohol in here. Just enough to cover the bottom of the pan. Gonna scoop up my stuff and drop it on in. I am very certain we're going to have extra. For stuff like this, when there's extra, I get these little, they're just little sample jars. I got them off of Amazon and they're really nice to hold, you know, extra powders or extra creams, if anything. I have all of my like Juvia's Place extra stuff in there from when I repressed those big ones. This is way messier than I would recommend being. I'm just feeling a little cavalier today. I have done it both ways, where I drop some alcohol in and then put more dry on top, or just put more dry on top before going in. I would say it really depends on something. It really depends on how big your like initial tower is. Sometimes you need to like push it down some before you can, oh goodness, sometimes you need to push it down some before you can add more, and sometimes it doesn't matter. I expect a great deal of overflow similarly, so we're going to approach this like we did last time, and then we're going to press it very softly at first. It's very satisfying. When this happens and you want to add some of this back into the pan, don't do the 30 seconds, just press it down. Just give it like maybe a 1 second or 2 second, you know, push, and then pick up the other product you want and lay it back in the pan. You can do it less messy than I do. I just don't care. But I would not expect, especially with like this volume, I don't expect to be able to recover all of it. Alright, so now I'm pressing, making sure the edges of my pans are lined up. Alright. And that looks nice and clean, doesn't it? Thank you. Thank you for being good so I can impress these people. So we're going to set that aside to dry and clean this up. Alright, so we're gonna clean up this mess, and then actually, with me realizing that I don't have enough pans, I'm not going to attempt to repress these two. As I mentioned in my review video, this shade is very similar to Matriarch from Sigil Inspired, and this one is very similar to Saltwater Quirk from Sigil Inspired. So if it were easy and convenient for me to do this, I would, but because it's not, I don't care enough to, and that's kind of where I'm at. So as it stands, the only things I'm keeping from this palette are this gold one, maybe, depending on how it dries, and this purple satin. Then we will check back in tomorrow to see how they dried, especially that weird sponginess, and then we will wrap up. Hey, so this is actually several weeks after I filmed the depotting of the Pat McGrath palette. I realized that I might not have filmed an end cap where we just talked about how the shadows did for repressing and, you know, said goodbye and all that good stuff. So that's what I'm gonna do. I have no makeup on. I'm about to start filming for the day, so we're just gonna take care of this first. I have here the two eyeshadows that I repanned, and both of them did very well. They adhered just fine to the pan, they swatched just fine, and everything is good. They've been kind of chilling in my palettes for a little while. So this is the purple and the gold. Honestly, I think that the gold does a little better than it did in the palette, so I don't really know why it was in that silicone deal, but it's there. It's very pretty, very reflective. It's adhered just fine to the pan. So yeah, I'll get these labeled soon and they will sit in my palette and be happy. I think that's all I have to say on this. Thanks for watching the video, I really appreciate it. If you liked it, please do give it a thumbs up, or if you don't like depotting or destroying luxury palettes, give it a thumbs down. But do leave me a comment if you're having a hard time. Go ahead and express your feelings, I'm here for you. If you liked me and my flowing red hair, do also subscribe to the channel. I upload on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, at least for the foreseeable future. You can find me on the internet at Faces by Gina. I have an Instagram and a Facebook page under those names where I upload every single day, so you're gonna get looks there that you're not gonna see here on the channel. So that's a great reason to come join the fun. I hope that you're having a great day wherever you are. Please remember to think deeply and engage the world around you as you're being good to yourself and being good to others. I'll see you out there on the internet.